we're going to highlight how we use Terraform to automate multi-cloud. So in this example, we're going to be automating infrastructure as a service in the AWS provider of Terraform. So just as context, what I'd like to show you is a pretty complex use case. So to do that, let's take a quick look at this picture here and talk to you about what Gluware is going to automate. So we're going to be automating the deployment of a reference kind of pod, as you would call it. Quite a few of our customers want their operations to be able to spin up in public clouds a reusable architecture that is used for deploying applications faster. And they spin them up when they need them, and they tear them down, and they do lifecycle management as well. But this particular pod design example is made up of 4 different VPCs: dev, test, prod, and shared services. Then there's a transit gateway. Transit gateway adds a lot of routing type capability to describe who can talk to who and who can talk to the VPN gateway. And so it's quite a complicated example, but I think a good reference point to show you what Gluware is able to automate using Terraform. So let me close that out. And let me also add in is that, if I was going to automate this natively with Terraform, first, each person trying to automate it natively with open source Terraform would have to go through installing Docker, installing Terraform, installing the providers. It's a lot of setup, and then all the API connection information. And then you start building your Terraform file. And this particular design, if I scroll through it for you, because again, it's made up of multiple VPCs and a transit gateway and all the rules and attributes associated with it, the Terraform file itself is not trivial. It's nearly 750 lines. So while Terraform is an excellent engine, it's really more of a product, especially in the open source flavor, that is built for more of a developer kind of consumption. So what you're able to do with Gluware is Gluware really kind of wraps the application side around it and provides you a usable and reusable type of capability, especially as operations is going to use it. So one of the first things you're going to see here in Gluware's config modeling or model editor is that the node in this case, as I click on this particular example, is an API endpoint. So I put my API credentials in here, and then as I double click on this particular endpoint and I bring up what I'm automating, again, I talked about the fact that we're automating something quite complicated. So in this example, we're automating a transit gateway and all the related VPCs. So all of this maps into Gluware into the config modeling constructs, my assemblies, my features, and my globals. One thing I'll mention also real quickly is that Terraform, is the underlying engine, and then there's the various providers. So the AWS provider, for example, is made up of, you essentially translate what you can do in AWS into these constructs or infrastructure as code and Terraform. And Terraform has 644 providers and like over 200 data sources as part of the AWS provider. So you essentially kind of learn the constructs of Terraform and how they map and automate the constructs in AWS, like VPCs and security groups and transit gateways and other things. So again, wrapping Gluware around it, Gluware imports all of those capabilities into a library to kind of build what you're looking for. Now, the building can be kind of complex, and I will mention if you click into AWS, and I wanted to start here, and let me refresh out this. So I should be pretty much all at zeros here. Some of them have been deleted but are still not fully updated. What we're starting with is an instance in AWS that is completely empty. And you can definitely go through the AWS portal and build out constructs by hand. Essentially click and build your VPCs and your gateways and your security groups. This particular design, a customer told us it took roughly 2 days to build it manually. Now, when they showed us the design, what we were able to do is leverage a reference architecture that was very similar and just make minor changes to it to match what they wanted. That reference architecture was provided in a Terraform file, and Gluware is actually able to onboard native Terraform files. So we just select the Terraform configuration import workflow, similar to how we go to an intelligent model discovery. We're able to import Terraform files. In this case, it was a reference design. And if you zoom out here, you can see there's a lot of constructs involved here. But as I zoom in, these are VPCs, so I can see and if I click in again to more of the construct level, a Terraform resource here describes an AWS VPC CIDR block. So I can see, the constructs here. And while this is important, Gluware is going to spin up this entire environment in kind of a day zero or day one kind of deployment. But in day two, if your operations has to go and make a change to a security group or to a permission in a transit gateway, I can provide them guidelines as to how to come in and edit a given security group. So with that kind of introduction being kind of provided, what we're going to do here is click on the API endpoint and execute a provisioning. So I'm going to just select here provision features and hit start action and hit proceed. Also circling back to the AWS console here, I can see again, if I refresh resources, I'm pretty much all zeros. If I click into anything previous that was here, it has actually been deleted, but just hasn't been updated. So I want to show you that we're kind of starting from scratch inside this particular AWS region, and we're going to be deploying this pod. So this particular pod, and again, when I double click into this and switch to the log view, I can see all the interaction Gluware is having with the Terraform engine, which is in turn speaking API calls into the AWS provider. So I'll pause here and we'll wait for the provisioning to complete. Okay, my log shows me that I'm finished, and it took about 8.5 minutes here. And I certainly can scroll back and see all the detailed action interacting with the Terraform engine in terms of provisioning this pod. Now keep in mind that in 8.5 minutes, it would have been thousands of clicks to provision through the AWS portal, and it would have been a pretty big learning curve to install Terraform and work with a native TF file on a per individual basis. So Gluware really provides that leverage and reusability and structure to leverage and automate using essentially acting as an application sitting on top of the Terraform engine. So let's go ahead and refresh our view here, and I can see my VPCs were created, my subnets were created, the route tables, internet gateways. So everything looks good here in the AWS console, and that concludes this short demo. You certainly could have destroyed or done day two automation, and really the methodology you see here of automating AWS would be the same for automating Azure or automating Google Cloud. You're using the resources and that are defined in the TF file, and then Gluware is providing the editability and reusability of the TF file, and then automating and essentially leveraging the Terraform engine to make the API calls to the provider and spin up or augment the resources that have been defined.